Mike Radich here, and I'm now joined on the phone by World Series of Fighting welterweight Jon Fitch. Jon, how are you?
I'm doing good, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Sure, no problem. Thanks for doing it. Jon, you got a fight coming up July 5th at World Series of Fighting 11. You're going to be taking on Dennis Hallman. Hallman is your fourth opponent that you've had in this whole adventure to get this fight for July 5th. You first were going to face Rousimar Palhares, then it went to Jake Shields, then it went to Josh Berkman. The last time I can remember crazy kind of opponent mix-up was when you fought Ben Saunders at UFC 111. You were supposed to fight Thiago Alves, and then he was pulled from the card 2 days before the event. In your past, did you ever have a crazy situation like this with opponents dropping out? Maybe in your early days of your career, do you ever remember having this kind of chaos for getting a fight?
I mean, it's part of the game. It's been going on like this. I've been fighting for 12 years. I mean, this is nothing new. Not only do we have a lot of opponent changes, but I had 3 event dates, and you know, I was supposed to fight in March, and then in June, and then in July. So I've had that moved around. We had the opponents. We had locations. Just for this fight, we had 3 locations. We had Tampa, and then we were supposed to be in Connecticut. Now we're back in Daytona. So, you know, it's a part of the game. You got to be used to this type of stuff. The important thing is, you know, you set your eyes on that date, and you get ready for that date, and then you fight whoever they stick in front of you.
Mm-hmm. Now, on a positive side, does it, you know, make you feel good that they have this kind of depth in the welterweight division? Because they offered you 4 guys.
There's a lot of good fights at welterweight, man. I'm not worried about not having good fights. It's a good thing to be in this situation. You know, we're developing a very strong welterweight weight class at World Series, and there's going to be a lot of great fights at that weight class.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, since you're fighting Dennis Hallman, we'll leave him off this list, but I'm just curious, the other 3 guys that you were scheduled to fight on this card, Josh Berkman, Jake Shields, and Rousimar Palhares, could you rank these guys in order of who you wanted to fight the most to who you wanted to fight the least of these 3? Because you could make a case that all these are real fun fights. You have Rousimar Palhares, who's the World Series of Fighting welterweight champion, and there's a little bit of heat brewing between the 2 of you. Then you have Jake Shields. You competed against him in a grappling match back in 2007. That would have been a fun fight. Then you have Josh Berkman. It's 1-1 right now. This would have been the rubber match. So could you rank in order from most to least of those 3 guys that were scheduled to fight against you? Could you rank them in order of who you wanted the most? Because they're all very interesting situations and all very interesting storylines going into the fights.
I want the belt. You know, I mean, that's the ultimate goal for any fighter is the belt. And then I'm here to fight the best guys in the world. So once I have the belt, you know, I'll fight, you know, all the top guys I can. So they're all desirable fights. They're all fights I want. And the fights the fans want too. I think fights, you know, they really want to see me in Berkman again. They really want to see me in Shields again. And now we're developing a thing where they want to see me in Palhares fight too. So there's a lot of good fights out there. I'm excited. It's going to be an exciting future for MMA in general. I think the next few years, see what happens.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, when Berkman was pulled from the card, were you worried that they weren't going to be able to find someone again, or did they, you know, immediately come back with, "Hey, we're going to find you somebody, just sit tight"?
I wasn't worried. I kind of laughed it off. You know, Crazy Bob we were at the gym, and Crazy Bob goes, "Oh, I just got a text from Ali," and
right.
I was like, "Oh, Jesus, here we go again." But I knew we'd find somebody. You know, we're fighting on NBC. Somebody was going to step up. Somebody was going to fight on that card, whether it was a younger guy or whatever. Somebody was going to do it. I wasn't afraid.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, were you hoping for a guy like Hallman's caliber? Were you hoping that it would be a veteran guy, a guy that people know?
Yeah. I was really happy that he took the fight. You know, nothing but respect for Dennis Hallman and what he's done with his career. But yeah, you hope for a name fight on a card like the NBC card, something like that. You want people to really want to see the fight, and you want them to view it as, you know, a competitive fight. Sometimes, unfortunately, fans, if they aren't real familiar with the other guy, they expect you to destroy the guy in a minute, and if you don't, then they look down on you. Even though that there's so many good fighters out there, just because you don't know their name doesn't mean that they're not dangerous, and doesn't mean that they couldn't be a world champ.
Right. Now, you've been in this sport a long time. Dennis Hallman has been in this sport a really long time, but for whatever reason, your 2 paths have never crossed until now. when you first got to the UFC, you were fighting as a middleweight and Hallman was fighting as a welterweight. Then when you dropped to welterweight and went on that great run pre the GSP fight, Hallman wasn't fighting in the UFC. He was doing his thing outside the organization. Then after the GSP fight, he came back to the UFC, but he was dabbling as a lightweight, and then it really didn't make much sense for you to be fighting him because he was borderline top 20, top 15, somewhere in there, and you were the number one guy in the world. So has Dennis Hallman ever been on your radar?
He's somebody that I always, pay attention to because he was fighting before I was, and
right.
Back when I first was in this, starting out, I was on the message boards and all that stuff too, and everybody knew who Dennis Hallman was. He submitted Matt Hughes twice.
Right.
There was a lot of people back in the day raising a big stink because you had this guy who had 2 wins over Matt Hughes who wasn't allowed to fight in the UFC for some reason. It's kind of one of those things where a lot of people were saying that the UFC protects people in that sense. Especially when you have somebody who's got 2 wins over a guy who's a champ. That's kind of weird. Why you wouldn't want to try to get that guy in immediately and at least test him out against some guys to try to maybe build a fight with the champ.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You just said you've been watching Dennis Hallman fight for years. So I'm just curious, when you got that call saying that Hallman was going to be fighting you on July 5th, what went through your mind?
I was happy because I knew it was going to be a tough fight. I knew he was going to come to fight, and I knew he wasn't going to make an excuse for any reason why not to fight. He's one of those guys that when he signs a contract, he shows up. It's our job. Guys fight sick, they fight hurt, they fight when tragedies happen around them. Everybody's got problems, everybody's got stuff, and he's one of those guys who is a fighter. Fighters fight. We don't make excuses not to fight.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, because of your style and the way you like to wrestle and get guys to the ground and beat them up once you get to the floor, what do you think his camp is telling him to do in this fight? Do you think they're telling him the best way to try to get a win on July 5th is to submit you from his back once you get to the ground, hope that you make a mistake and then catch you in a submission? Or do you think his camp is telling him to keep the fight standing and try to go for a knockout similar to the way he knocked out Carl Parisian? What do you think his camp is telling him to do against you in this fight?
I mean, he's a veteran. He's been around a long time. I don't think, he's like me. He's not going to try to force any one thing. You get out there and he's well-rounded. You're going to fight hard and fit in your game where it applies and make things happen. I don't think he's just sitting there thinking, I have to knock him out or I have to submit him. He's got some strengths and he's got some things in his game that he's going to try to apply, and I'm going to do the same. And whoever is able to inflict their will on the other guy is the guy who's going to be successful, and that's usually the way it goes with most fights.
Mm-hmm. Now, I'm just curious, since before Hallman came in as your opponent, you were supposed to fight Josh Burkman. Mm-hmm. Did you ever, in your wildest dreams, think that you were going to be fighting Josh Burkman, like a trilogy with him? Did you ever think, back in all your fights, that would be the guy that you would have a trilogy with, Josh Burkman? I mean, the fight is probably going to happen somewhere down the line. Did you ever think that Burkman would be the guy?
I never really thought about it. I learned a long time ago. It's a wasted energy to think too much about the past or the future.
Right.
You kind of have to just focus on what's happening right now, and until a year ago, that hadn't been something in the radar. There just wasn't. He wasn't out of the UFC, and he found a kind of resurgence. I think with getting married and having children, and that I think kind of refocused him into fighting again. Because there's peaks and valleys for a lot of guys, and things happen in your personal life that the public doesn't know about, and it makes it hard to maintain that top level of performance. But when you get your mind right and you get your life straightened out, or you just learn how to deal with it, you're able to come back and fight and perform on a big level again. And I think that's what he's doing, and that's put him back in my radar. And I think I've kind of straightened out my life and my mind too. And I think this is the beginning, of my next run, my next career, my next big make in this sport.
Mm-hmm. Of all the guys that you fought in the past, who was the guy that you thought you would have a trilogy with? Like, who's the guy that you thought that you're like, all right, we're going to meet a couple times before my career's over?
I thought GSP for sure.
Right.
I thought for our fight, I thought it was a great fight. People loved it. I thought, people love the fight that much. Why wouldn't they want to see it again. And, I thought if we met up again, I'd beat him, and then, of course, we'd have to do the trilogy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. When was the last time you watched the GSP fight?
I haven't watched a UFC fight in years.
Really?
Yeah. They bore me.
Really?
They're kind of all the same.
Oh.
I watch my teammates. That's it.
So you never go back and watch any of your past fights?
No. I lived them.
Oh.
You don't rewatch them.
Right.
You go through life, you have experiences, and you need to learn from those experiences as they happen, and you take them with you. I don't think, I think we've all been burned somewhere in our past, as like a child, like a physical, actual burn,
right.
With fire.
Mm-hmm.
You touch something hot, you burned your hand. Every time you see something hot, you don't have to think back to that experience of that first time you got burned and learn not to touch hot stuff,
mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
You kind of take that experience with you, and for the rest of your life, be careful around things that might be hot. So it's kind of like that, I don't have to go back and think about, that one time I threw a bad leg kick or whatever. You learn from the experience immediately, and then you progress forward with your life, taking that knowledge with you.
Right. I hear you. I can relate. I don't listen to any of my interviews. When I interview somebody, I don't go back and listen. I just live it, like you said.
To some degree, you have to kind of check yourself to see where you can make improvements. Mm-hmm. But you can't dwell on them. You can't just keep watching old fights over and over and over again. I'll have a fight, and then the week or two after, I'll watch the fight 5 to 10 times. I'll take the lessons from them, what I did here good, what I did here bad, and I'll already start working things in the gym kind of to improve, and I'll take that lesson with me, and then I don't really have to go back and keep watching it.
Right. Has that always been your theory on the fights, or is this something that's been developed in the last couple of years?
It's something that's developed over the years, especially not just fights, in life in general. Mm-hmm. You can't live in the past, you can't live in the future. They don't exist. They're not real. The only thing there is the eternal now. That's it, right now. Mm-hmm. Tomorrow never comes. You have to do 100% effort in the now, to make things happen in the future. You don't want to sit there and just think and dwell about it over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm. I've always been fascinated by that because people always say, the old saying, you learn more from your losses than you do from your wins, but you continue to dwell on your losses. You see these guys who they dwell on their loss. Okay, I can't make this mistake.
And then 5 years later, they're still hung up on that loss and that mistake they made rather than having moved on and learned from the mistake rather than just dwelling on the whole fight.
Right. I always thought that was interesting. These guys, I can't make this mistake. I can't make this mistake. I did it in my last fight, and then that mistake happens. It's always interesting.
But like attracts like. If you're putting, it's kind of like a hippie thing to say, but I think it's true. You put certain energies out there in the world. I think you attract those energies back. So if you're fixated on a mistake you made, or you're worrying about an old injury or something like that, it comes back to you. It always comes back to say, well, boomerang.
Mm-hmm. Right. Now, John, a couple questions I've always wanted to ask you. The first question is, Dave Camarillo, when was the last time you talked to him?
I've been training with him a lot this fight.
Really?
I've been going on Fridays over to his gym in Pleasanton and sparring with James Terry, J.J. Ambrose. He's got some good guys, and then, picking his brain and working on things, and then it's kind of nice because I have Leandro Vieira and Checkmat, and sometimes Leo Rico come to town, and I get to pick their brains and learn some great stuff from them, and then I get to take it over to Dave also, and I get his input and get to practice it on guys who haven't seen it, and then sometimes it's hard to do the stuff that Leandro's showing here at AKA because everybody sees it. They know what you're doing. Right. So it's good to take it to other places. So I'm very spoiled right now. I have 2 world-class jiu-jitsu instructors that are just, they're the best. They're amazing with what they do and the knowledge they have.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Have you always been in contact with Dave since he left AKA? Because we haven't really heard much about him, in the time frame that he left AKA till now. He's kind of off in the shadows.
He's focusing mostly on his jiu-jitsu schools. Right. He does a lot of combative stuff too. He works with the military, so he spends a lot more time doing that. But he helps James Terry out quite a bit, and J.J. Ambrose is another guy that he helps quite a bit. So he's not really in the MMA world as much as he used to be when he was coaching AKA. But he's got 2 schools and affiliates all over the country. He's training guys in the military. He's got a lot on his plate. He's always busy.
I see. And Josh Koscheck, have you been over to his gym at all, doing some training? Because
not for a while. I haven't been for a while. When he fought Hendricks, I came down there. I was able to train a little bit, but I haven't been able to make it down there for some time.
Mm-hmm. I see. Because in the show Fight Factory, I think you were only able to make it down there once.
Yeah, and then we've had I had a kid 2 years ago, and we just had a kid 3 months ago. So that's taken up a lot of time, and then I was in Syracuse, New York for 5-6 months. So I missed a lot over here. When I was gone.
Right. Now I heard that you were planning on moving to Las Vegas. Is that still the plan?
Yeah, I think we're planning on moving. We don't have all the details worked out, but the decision has been made that we want to move to Vegas, and that's mostly political and economic reasons. Mm-hmm. I just don't agree with what's going on in California. I don't like it. I don't like the taxes. It's ridiculous. Cost of living, it's all nonsense, and I just feel like there's tension here, and I feel like something bad is going to happen. And I don't want my family around it if the state implodes or there's a natural disaster or, we're going through a really severe drought right now, but there's no news about it. They're not even talking about it. You go to a nice neighborhood, a nice community where there's an HOA, everything's green. They're not suffering from the drought, but there's a lot of organic farmers that are, and there's a lot of small-time farmers and people that are. And a lot of that water is getting diverted to these factory-type farms and stuff. And I don't know, I just feel like if there was an earthquake or something, this drought, too, could be real bad. We could get a lot of crazy forest fires, who knows. And then if that happens, we also have another tech boom in the Bay Area. So they're building more and more and more houses for people to come in. And there's this huge gap being created between the rich and the poor. And the infrastructure, I don't think, can handle all the people moving in. I don't think the roads, the water, the electric. In the whole country, it's pretty bad, but I think it's even worse in California. So, this drought keeps going on. There's an earthquake. You got really pissed off, hungry, starving, poor people, and some really arrogant rich people. Something bad's going to happen.
Yeah, California, that whole thing, the cost of living, the taxes, like you said, that's enough to leave just...
And then the gun laws here are terrible. So something bad did happen, you couldn't even defend your house and your family.
Mm-hmm. Right. Now, what happened with your gym in Syracuse? Are you still affiliated with those guys out there? Are you still working for them?
No, the contract is run out. It was a good experience. I'm really glad I went. Some great people. I did some great work out there. I got to work with Matt Brown quite a bit. Rodrigo Body, I got to work with him quite a bit too. Jim Andrello and Darren Carroll, great stand-up coaches. I got to work with them a ton. But I'm not ready to teach. I'm not ready to teach full time. I got too much stuff pulling me all over the place. I can't be cemented into one place in one gym teaching, hours and hours a day. So I decided not to renew, and it's a good experience. It was a good experience, and I have nothing negative about the whole experience to say, but it just wasn't a good fit for me right now in my life.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Is that still the plan, that when your fighting career is over, that you want to get into coaching? Is that what you see happening in the future? Is that still the plan? Do you still want to coach guys once your fighting career is over? Is that something that you still want to do?
Maybe. I mean, one of the things I realized is that I really, really like working with elites, whether it's elite MMA fighters or elite military-type people, I like working with those guys. Regular students is a little bit harder. It's a little bit more mundane because you're doing the same thing over and over again.
Right.
And it takes a lot of time and hours. And I'm a little bit lazy. I don't like putting that many hours in a day. I kind of have a cap. If I have to work more than 4 hours a day, it's not the job for me.
Oh, I see. Now,
I'd rather be poor and spend time with my family than be rich and work 12 hours a day.
Right. I hear you. Now,
one of the things I might do, if I could figure out a way to just teach children and open a gym, I might do that, because then I could hang out with my boys and all day long, and not have to pay a daycare or something like that, and then I could teach other children and kind of maybe improve the future by influencing kids in a good way.
Yeah. How many kids do you have? Just one son, or
two? I have two boys.
Oh, how old are they?
2 and 4 months.
Oh,
they're 2 years apart, almost exactly. 5 days apart.
Oh, I see. Now, going forward, are you still going to be affiliated with AKA, even though you're making the move to Las Vegas, or will you go find a gym down there?
I believe AKA, man. It's my family.
Right.
No matter what, I'll always be supportive of AKA and doing what I can to help and take care of the guys at AKA. But the decision to move is nothing about, gyms. It's about politics and money and, my family. I think when I moved to Vegas, the only thing I've got worked out right now is that I'm probably going to be training stand-up with One Kick Nick, who's been proven to be a hell of an instructor. Plus, I've found over the years that you need somebody your size or bigger to hold mitts for you. It's kind of unpractical. You can do a lot of movement stuff with smaller guys, but if you got a guy holding for you that's 145 pounds and you're a heavyweight, I don't think it's a good match.
One thing I always wanted to ask you, and I know you said that you don't live in the future or live in the past, but since we're living in the now, as of today, I saw a list a couple months ago. I can't remember exactly where it was, what magazine it was in, but I was in the gas station. I was flipping through a magazine. And I saw this list, and I agree with this list. They had the top 5 welterweights all time. Can't remember the magazine, but I remember the top 5 list. And I know, obviously, people will probably disagree, but you can add guys like Pat Miletich, Hayato Sakurai, Nick Diaz, Johnny Hendricks. So you could add some guys in there. Like, people will be mad at this list, but the guys that I saw there, I kind of agree. And number 1 they had was GSP. Number 2 was Matt Hughes. Number 3 was Jake Shields. Number 4 was Carlos Condit. And number 5 was you. I agree with that list. Do you agree with that list?
I agree with being on that list, but I think I could be a little higher.
Right. That was going to be my next question. What order would you rearrange that in?
I think, but you know what? I mean, technically, I haven't held the hardware.
Right.
So that's an argument against me being higher. But I think I could fit in above Matt Hughes even. But he's a multi-time champ in the UFC. I haven't had the hardware, but as far as skill and output and abilities, I think I would be higher. But I don't. I think I'm only halfway through my career, so I got a long way to go to keep climbing that list, I think.
Right.
But I'm honored just to be on that top 5 list. So I think it would change quite a bit if I get the hardware on my belt or on my waist.
Right. You're kind of like the Dan Marino of MMA because...
Yeah, I don't want that to happen. I said that. See, you put energy out in the universe and shit happens. I couldn't have said that 10 years ago when I was, making my run in the UFC. I don't want to be the Dan Marino.
Right.
You got to be careful what you say sometimes.
Right. Speaking of Dan Marino, when he lost the Super Bowl to the 49ers, it was really, no sweat off his back. He's like, it's only my second year in the league. I'm going to make it back to the Super Bowl a couple more times. When you lost to GSP, was that the same mindset? You're like, oh, well, it's a devastating loss. It's bad. I worked so hard to get here. But in the back of your mind, you're like, I'm going to be here a couple more times. It's not that bad.
Well, kind of no. I was crushed after the GSP fight because I knew the chances of the UFC ever giving me another title shot was probably not going to happen no matter how many fights I won. I think in the interviews a week after that fight, I was like, I'm probably going to have to win 8 more fights in a row just to get close to a title shot again. And I was right. Again, I shouldn't have said it because I put that out into the universe and it kind of came true.
Right.
But yeah, I won 5 fights in a row after Thiago Alves' rematch. They said it was supposed to be for a title shot. And they changed their mind after the fight, which was disgusting, I think, because it was, I think, my best performance, the way I handled him that fight. I mean, you're talking about freaking Thiago Alves, and look at the things he's done to people in the past. And I handled him like that was the second fight of his life.
Right. And what do you think was the reason behind them not giving you that second title shot? Is it because of your style, or is it because
I'm not a yes man? I won't bow down. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to just take it in the butt when they're messing with sponsors or messing with other people. I speak up when I see them doing things that are wrong, treating people wrong, whether it was me or other people. I spoke up. I spoke up publicly, and you're not allowed to do that.
Right. But I always had this theory, like, you were on this great run, but there was always some guy who had some drama with GSP, like a Josh Koscheck or somebody who was like the new guy in town, like Dan Hardy, someone who hadn't got that shot before.
It's all manufactured. I think, too, I didn't play their game. They create a manufactured drama that's not there. I don't like that. I'm not a pro wrestler. I don't want any part of pro wrestling. I think if you're sold things by pro wrestling tactics, you're not really a fan of this sport anyways. You're a pro wrestling fan. Go watch pro wrestling.
Right. Now, this fight against Dennis Hallman is going to be airing live on NBC, the biggest network there is. How much does it mean to you to be fighting on NBC? Because this is a big deal.
My whole thing is, just give me a fight on NBC. Make sure I fight on NBC. With all this madness going on around us, I just want to fight on the NBC card. I was going to tell them, they found the Hallman pretty quickly, so I was really happy with that. But I was going to tell them, I think that same day that Hallman stepped up to take the fight, that I would fight at 85 anybody, just so I fight on NBC. Yeah,
that was going to be one of my questions. Like, did you get to the point where you're like, hey, I'll fight the guy who's selling peanuts in the stands. Just get me somebody.
Exactly. I'll fight at 185. I'll fight 205. I'll fight a heavyweight if there's a heavyweight that will take the fight on that short notice. Like that's how important it is to fight on a card that's on NBC. To be seen by 120 million people potentially. Come on, like who wouldn't jump all over that for no matter what's going on in their life? I don't get it.
I'm just curious, if you had stayed with the UFC, would you have ever fought on Fox? Would they have ever given you that opportunity to fight on Big Fox? Do you think they'd ever give you a shot to fight on network TV?
Who knows? I mean, like I said, I wasn't a good employee. I wasn't a good boy. I didn't do what I was told. I was a bad dog, so I was punished.
All those guys on the list, GSP, Matt Hughes, Jake Shields, Carlos Condit, all those guys have a title from a major organization. You're the only guy on the list who doesn't have a title belt from a major organization. How much would it mean for you to have the World Series of Fighting strap? How much do you need that? Will your career be incomplete if you don't have a title from a major organization?
I mean, it's serious, but I'm not going to, I'm not going to kill myself.
Right.
I mean, at the end of the day, I'm making money. I'm getting to live the life I want to live on my terms. I get to spend the time I want to with my family. And I think that's the most important thing for anybody is to live their life on their terms. And as long as I'm always doing that, I'm the most successful man in the world.
So you're not with Chael Sonnen when he says, hey, I didn't get the title, I came in second place, my career's a failure. You're not there.
No, I mean, this guy, for a pro wrestler, he did a pretty awesome job in MMA.
Right.
As an MMA fighter, it was a failure of an MMA career, but then he turned into a pro wrestler and he made a shitload of money. Congrats. But, that's not me. I'm not a pro wrestler. I don't want to do that.
Right.
He has made more money than me because he did that route, but, that's not something I would have been satisfied with, doing it that way. I'm happy to do things my way. And it's not bad, it's not bad. I don't look down on him. I don't dislike him.
Right.
He did what he wanted to do. He lived the life he wanted to do on his terms, and it's fine.
Right.
I was hanging out with Phil Baroni this weekend, and he was going off about how Chael stole his whole gig.
Who was that? Who were you talking to?
Phil
Oh, Baroni. Yeah, Baroni.
He's like, that's my bit. That's my stick. He stole it.
Yeah. I interviewed him
money. I should have been in the UFC making that money.
Yeah. I interviewed him a year or two ago, and he's like, Chael Sonnen's been reading my book. None of this stuff. Yeah, reading his book. That's what he says. He's been reading my book.
He's right, man. You go back and look at some of Phil's stuff from way back, man. He's right.
Yeah. Baroni's great. He's got a big fight coming.
Funny. He was trying to get a picture with Askren at the fights.
No way. Was he?
Yeah. Ben was walking by because he's cornering a guy. He was cornering Glenn, I think. I can't remember, but he was cornering somebody and walking by with the bucket, and Phil's like, "Hey, Ben, come here, let's get a picture." And Ben just laughed. It was
funny. How was the event? You were there cornering Tyson Griffin.
It was really good. Man, they're putting on great shows, and the reason they're putting on great shows is because it's a lax environment. Everybody only has to worry about the fight. I think, I talked to some other people about, the environment and the feel at a UFC event. Like, everybody's tense. Nobody feels like they're happy, because I feel like everybody, from the fighters to the van drivers, are worried about getting fired. Mm-hmm. Everybody's job is on the line every day. So, there's a lot of weird tension, and it's not a fun environment to be around.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I think when you're worried about losing your job going into a fight, you're not going to fight well. You're not going to fight well. You're not going to put on a good show. But when you know that no matter what happens, you're still going to have a job, you're still going to get another fight in a few months, you're going to fight your ass off. That's all you got to worry about.
Mm-hmm. Now, you were there cornering Tyson Griffin. You were also there for the press conference for World Series of Fighting 11. Besides that, did they have you doing signings? Did they have you doing any other stuff?
Signing, and we did some video stuff for the NBC stuff, too. It was a good experience. It was a lot of fun. Wore a suit, and that wasn't a great idea in Vegas. I couldn't take my jacket off because I was a little pity.
Right, right.
A little sweaty in the pits, but it was fun. It was a lot of fun. I got to meet a lot of great fans, a lot of knowledgeable fans. I think sometimes at these smaller shows, the fans that show up really know who the fighters are and know about their careers, rather than just going to an event because it's cool to do.
Right, right.
And one thing I've noticed too over the years, it's really awesome, is you get groups of women, just chicks coming in. You'll get 4 or 5. Groups of women, 4 or 5 deep, maybe even 10 deep, that come by themselves. They just come to the fights alone. They're not dragged there by their boyfriend or husband.
Right. Yeah. I've seen that. I've noticed that as well. The 2 more things about that. The first one is you and Hallman were looking real good in those suits. You guys were looking good with these suits. Is this something that you're going to continue on? I mean, I know you said Las Vegas, it wasn't the best idea, but is this your new style?
Well, they asked us to dress up because it is for MDC, and I think that's a good strategy to do, because you never know. Some guys are okay with the t-shirts and hats, no big deal. But some guys, wear shirts and things that might not be that appropriate to an NBC type viewing. They have to tone things down a little bit at that level.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And was it World Series of Fighting and NBC, the people that told you to shave that beard? Because I saw something on your Twitter and you had some crazy beard going. Was that their call to get rid of that?
You see, I grow like a baby beard when I have my babies, so I have this huge beard, and after I shaved it like a month after the baby was born, I took a picture with the baby and the beard, and then I kind of shaved something stupid in it before I shaved the whole thing. Drive my wife crazy for a few days, and then I put that up because Phil was going back and forth about what to do with his beard.
I see. Jon, real quick before I let you go, do you have any sponsors you'd like to thank, and is there anything you'd like to say to the fans?
I just want to thank my fans for all the support, and the sponsor thing too is something kind of that I did. I don't know if you guys were paying attention to this weekend, but I was doing, and it kind of like a sponsorship investment thing for my fans, because my fans have been supporting me so much over the years. I want to give back, and I want to make them money. So I paired up with this guy, Brian Kelly, who developed this digital currency called Nautilus coins. And basically, we encourage people to buy some Nautilus coin, you have to buy Bitcoin first, and then convert it to Nautilus coin, and then keep buy $100 worth, and then we're encouraging them to send me like $10 and then sit on the 90. Mm-hmm. Just over the weekend, like the price almost doubled. It went from 8 cents to 13 cents. So if the people already donated, or not donated, but invested into the sponsorship, the more money we raise, the bigger the sponsor logo will be on the NBC card. So I was giving them an opportunity to buy in some of this Nautilus coin on the ground level, and then we show it to 120 million people, and hopefully the price goes from 10 or 13 cents to $1.50 a coin, and hopefully they'll make some money. I want to get my fans paid, share the wealth.
Oh, how'd you get hooked up with those guys?
I've been reading a lot, man. I spend a lot of time reading. I don't have a TV, don't have cable. I'm either hanging out with my family, reading, or playing ukulele. So I've been following this stuff online. Digital currencies are a big thing. If you haven't heard about them or don't know about them, start reading about them. Educate yourself. They're going to replace credit cards. Credit cards are outdated. They're dangerous. People steal your identity. They cost too much for vendors and merchants themselves because they have to insure themselves against fraud and theft and all that crap. So digital currency is the future of this. It's going to take over credit cards. So reading about that stuff, and one of the things that got me into it was my mom was part of that Target hack, where Target got hacked and all their info got taken. And my mom was 6 years old, and she had to go through this process of redoing her credit card crap. I mean, it's silly. There needs to be a better way. It's an outdated system. So this new frontier of digital currency is kind of like where the internet was in the early 90s.
I
So
see.
you can either laugh at it and scoff at it and be like, whatever, or you can get on the ground floor and make some money.
Yeah. I got to do some reading on this. It sounds like the new wave of the future. I better get on
I
it.
think you can go to, I think CoinDesk, something like that, is a good source for Bitcoin and altcoin information.
Oh, I see. And is this company like the pioneer of this, or are there multiple competitors with them?
There's more. The pioneer is Bitcoin. Bitcoin came out like 2008, 2009, and it's basically like digital gold. They found a way to make it traceable, make it. There's only so much made, and then there's alternate coins that are branched off that and backed by this digital gold, basically. And it could get to the point where the alternate coins become more valuable than the Bitcoin, which I think will happen because Bitcoin has flaws in its algorithms and designs and stuff, where these newer coins that are coming out, like Nautilus coin, are better. The transaction time for Nautilus coin is 60 seconds, where Bitcoin transactions take 10 minutes. So it's not very merchant friendly. Like if you went to McDonald's and people were buying in Bitcoin and you're the third person in line, it's going to take you 25, 26 minutes before you even get to order because of the time that Bitcoin takes. But with an Nautilus coin, 60 seconds is probably the fastest and safest time that you can do it in. It makes it much more merchant friendly.
And how would I, use this digital coin to pay for something? Is there a card? Is there a number I punch in?
Right now, things like Expedia, Dish Network, they're accepting Bitcoin payments now.
Oh.
So it's slowly growing. The merchants are picking up more and more. People are getting into it, and the businesses are realizing that this digital currency is better than credit cards. It's cheaper for them to operate their business with these digital currencies. So it's going to happen. I mean, there's no way that it's not. Like, if something's better, people are going to use it.
Right. Well, I definitely got to get on it. I got to do my reading up on this.
And you can also, it's person-to-person transfers makes it easy. Like, it'll get rid of, and I can't remember the business name, but if you had to send money to somebody, right, Western Union, that's it. They take huge fees out. Well, if you had to send money across the country to a family member, they could open up a digital wallet. You have a digital wallet. You can send it directly to their digital wallet, no charge.
Oh.
You would have no charge, and it would be fast. You would take the Bitcoin, it would only take 10 minutes to process, and you'd send the money to your friend or your mother or whatever from the other side of the country. Within 10 minutes, they have the money. There's no charge. It's going to put those businesses out of business. You can send it not just across the country, though, but I could send it to Russia or China or Vietnam or Japan. Same thing.
I see. And it does.
Try doing that with cash. Try to send $1,000 to maybe your second generation American, and you got family still in another country. Try sending them $1,000.
Yeah.
How much of that are they going to get?
Yeah. Yeah. I was curious about that because you mentioned this sponsorship at the press conference. So I was really curious about what this whole thing was about.
Yeah. Look into it. Read about it. I mean, even if you just buy $100 worth of coin and sit on it for a while, if the price goes up like it could, that 100 could turn into 1,000 or 10,000 within 5 years.
Yeah. Well, I'm definitely gonna read up on this, John.
Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Don't take your life savings in there, though.
Right.
It is still, a volatile market. Be safe, but start reading about it. Educate yourself about it.
Right. I hear you. John, really appreciate your time. Best of luck coming up at World Series of Fighting 11 against Dennis Hallman.
All right. Thank you.